The people of Venezuela mobilized in defense of their sovereignty and to commemorate the civic-military rebellion of January 23, 1958, that overthrew the dictator General Marcos Pérez Jiménez. More than 31,000 people have been forced to flee their homes in Los Angeles, western United States, as a new fire rages in North Castile. Israel's deadly raid in West Bank Jenin has entered its third day, with its forces issuing a forced evacuation threat to residents of the refugee camp in the city. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The people of Venezuela mobilized in defense of their sovereignty and to commemorate the civic-military rebellion of January 23, 1958, that overthrew the dictator General Marcos Pérez Jiménez. The demonstration in Caracas also takes place in the midst of the ongoing Bolivarian Shield 2025 military drill that seeks to guarantee the country's territorial defense with the participation of the organized popular power. In this regard, the first Vice President of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, highlighted the determination of the Venezuelan people to defend the sovereignty and independence against any threat against the peace and stability of the nation. During the mobilization to commemorate the 67th anniversary of the end of Marcos Pérez Jiménez dictatorship, the president of Venezuela recalled the legacy of the eternal commander Hugo Chávez Frías.
And I know that our people respects and remembers Chávez and loves Chávez as well. I have inherited a lot of things from Chávez: threats, attacks, aggressions, but the most beautiful thing I have inherited from my father, it's the love and support from the people. And I say, love is paid with love always. The love of the people has always been paid with more love, and it will continue to be that way.
In addition, the president of Venezuela declared that the actions of the extreme right will have no place in Venezuela.
And this attempted coup won't have a place in Venezuela, and we will see each other in the same balcony the next year, 2020, the 21, the 22, 23, 24, 25, and from now on, because power belongs to the people in Venezuela. Do you remember? 6 years have passed. And where is the fake president?
Moreover, President Nicolás Maduro referred to the activation of the third transformation related to the security and sovereignty of the country, which the Venezuelan people are preparing to defend.
But what I can ask, and we're clear about, where is the Venezuelan people? Where is the Bolivarian Revolution? We are victorious, moving forward in an offensive. Moving forward, yesterday we activated the third T, the T of the security and sovereignty, and we deployed the civic military police fusion in the whole country. They think we're playing, but we're not playing. We're getting ready permanently for the armed fight in defense of peace, institutionality, stability, and the right to the future of Venezuela.
In Venezuela, January 23rd marks the 67th anniversary of the fall of the dictatorship of General Marcos Pérez Jiménez after the people's uprising that sought to restore freedom and democracy.
Marcos Pérez Jiménez governed Venezuela from 1952 to 1958, establishing an authoritarian regime characterized by censorship, persecution, and human rights violations, while popular discontent rose due to the lack of liberties and repression. Various sectors of society, such as students and workers, extended the protests until January 23, 1958, when they united in a civic-military movement that sought the overthrow of Pérez Jiménez's government. After the fall of the military dictatorship, a democratic process began as a symbol of hope and the struggle for freedom. A transitional government junta is installed made up of political parties such as Acción Democrática, COPEI, and URD, which later betrayed the Venezuelan people after signing the so-called Punto Fijo Pact. After the pact, these parties perpetuated themselves in power for more than 4 decades through a pseudo-democracy and the alternation in office, resulting in the surrender of resources, political persecution, and extreme poverty.
The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, denounced Thursday the humanitarian crisis in the Colombian region of Catatumbo and described it as the worst crisis in the country caused by clashes between armed groups since the signing of the peace treaty. Representatives of the humanitarian agency pointed out that in only 1 week there are at least 50,000 people affected by the violence in the zone, a situation that is growing rapidly in the country. The United Nations body also said that the crisis in the region was foreseen by the Ombudsman's office, which had declared on November 15, 2024, that the civilian population was under risk with the presence of illegal armed groups. Ecuador's Vice President Veronica Abad accused President Daniel Noboa of sedition in a letter addressed to the National Assembly, where she also demanded the censure of 6 of his ministers. In addition, in the letter sent to the president in charge of the Assembly, Esther Cuesta, Abad requested the censure of the Vice President in charge, Cynthia Galibert, for allegedly violating the exercise of the functions of the second in command of the Republic. In this regard, Abad assured that the action constitutes a violation to her human rights and to the institutionality of the country. Furthermore, she asked to be received in the Assembly's General Commission during the next plenary session after the end of the legislative vacancy. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. More than 31,000 people have been forced to flee their homes in Los Angeles, western United States, as new fire rages in North Castaic. The fire, known as the Huge Fire, was declared on Wednesday morning and has already burned more than 2,000 hectares. Emergency and weather services warned last week that winds in Southern California were helping to fuel the flames. Ventura and Los Angeles County are under a red flag warning until Friday, and the Department of Education announced that more than 2,000 students had been evacuated from Castaic schools.
The Hughes Fire is now estimated to be over 9,400 acres with 0% containment, with no structures reported damaged or destroyed. We have over 4,000 firefighting personnel assigned to the incident, and we had a very robust ground and air response to the incident that you see behind me.
Is that we have approximately 31,000 people who are affected by our evacuation orders, another 23,000 that are impacted by evacuation warnings.
A massive wildfire was reported in the city of Ipacaraí in the Central Department of Paraguay, along with other fires spreading nationwide. The firefighting force of Paraguay reported that the blaze started with 3 outbreaks in pastures in the Central Department of the South American nation, and so far, no injuries were reported. Meanwhile, the firefighters and the National Emergency Secretariat stated that the winds allowed the flames to spread rapidly and the drought made fire control more difficult. In addition, they highlighted the possibility that the fire was intentionally provoked by hunters of capybaras, lizards, and other species of the region, while the country's Animal Defense Department is working to rescue the endangered species to return them to their natural habitat. The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez assured on Thursday that his government would pay for the reconstruction of all the municipal buildings damaged by the passage of the cold drop. The Prime Minister explained that this will involve the restoration of municipal buildings and water infrastructures damaged, with a total budget estimated at €2.2 billion. After meeting with the 28 mayors of the most affected municipalities, Sánchez explained that 100% of the reconstruction will be financed. Nearly 100 administrative centers, 45 children's schools, 58 libraries, sports centers, and markets will benefit from the program.
Today I would like to publicly announce 2 new measures that we have shared in the meeting with the mayors concerned. The first of these measures is that the Spanish government will finance not 50 but 100% of the cost of rebuilding damaged municipal infrastructure.
In Indonesia, the death toll from a landslide caused by heavy rains on Monday on the island of Java rose to 22. After restarting the search for missing people, Indonesian rescuers recovered 4 more bodies that had been buried by mud during the landslide. In this sense, rescuers continue to fight against adverse weather in search for possible survivors. On the other hand, according to reports, the natural disaster destroyed a total of about 25 houses, a dam, and 3 major bridges connecting villages in Pekolangan city. Meanwhile, local authorities ordered the evacuation of at least 300 people who were relocated to temporary shelters. Air pollution forced nearly 200 schools to close on Thursday in Thailand's capital, while officials urged people to work from home and restricted heavy vehicles in the city. According to the Swiss air quality technology company IQ Air, on Thursday, the Thai capital was the 6th most polluted major city in the world, since the level of PM 2.5 pollutants, which are cancer-causing microparticles, hit 122 micrograms per cubic meter in the city. Meanwhile, Bangkok authorities said earlier this week schools in areas with elevated levels of PM 2.5 particles could close. Thus, by Thursday morning, 194 of the 437 schools under the Bangkok metropolitan area had shut the doors, affecting thousands of students. For its part, the government has announced incentives to reduce pollution levels as soon as possible. And we have a second show break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, that you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final show break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Israel's deadly raid in West Bank's Jenin has entered its third day, with its forces issuing a forced evacuation threat to residents of the refugee camp in the city. In this context, hundreds of Palestinians have started leaving their homes on Thursday. Jenin Governor Kamal Abu al-Rub told the press that the Zionist army has ordered the evacuations through loudspeakers and drone and military vehicles. Meanwhile, 2 Palestinian men were killed overnight in attacks by Israeli forces in Burkin, taking the death toll to 12 across Jenin Governorate in the first 2 days of large-scale raids, which are part of Israel's Iron Wall campaign, launched just days after a ceasefire in Gaza.
The soldiers entered and started firing at us from 4 directions. We have young girls at home and I started screaming for them. I grabbed them and we went into the bedroom. We stayed there while the shooting got stronger. We started screaming. We didn't know what to do. We stayed put until the end, and when the bulldozers arrived for demolishing, we came outside with a white flag in hand.
Winter weather and high food prices are worsening living conditions in the Gaza Strip despite an increase in humanitarian aid since the ceasefire took effect. Rain and cold inundated the Palestinian territories on Thursday, leaving tents floating in muddy puddles. Despite the Israeli ceasefire in Gaza, the living conditions of at least 2 million displaced people are still extreme due to the lack of food and other essential supplies. This, combined with the impact of families who are living in the open due to the destruction of their homes by Israeli aggressions.
We are suffering. We suffered during the war and during the truce. They raised the price of flour and food. There are no vegetables. If you go to buy a kilogram of tomatoes, they tell you it costs 13 shekels, and a kilogram of potatoes costs 13 shekels. My husband is sick and I have 10 relatives. I can't feed them or give them anything to drink. I can't bring them anything, and even if I went to northern Gaza, I couldn't get anything either. We are suffering a lot. Yesterday it rained on us and all the nylon fell on us and all the blankets were flooded in the water while my daughters were sleeping. I carried them quickly and we had to sleep here in the corner, me, my 2 daughters and my husband, and we stayed awake all night for fear of drowning more.
In Spain, public education unions held a second strike of 12 days, called in the Basque public education system to demand an improvement in working conditions. At least 30,000 teachers mobilized in the cities of Bilbao, Victoria and San Sebastián, denouncing that the agreement and working conditions have not been updated for 15 years. For its part, the Department of Education reported that 82% of the public schools and 48% of the teachers were present in the demonstrations. In this sense, the union denounced the abusive minimum services established by the Basque government, pointing out that the teachers sent a clear message to the Education Department. In Mexico, the new Great Museum of Chichen Itza presents more than 1,000 pieces that highlight the architecture and cultural history of this pre-Hispanic site. Most of the collection is made up of original objects from the region since 1890. In this way, the museum seeks to be a model for future cultural initiatives, including workshops in the Mayan language. One of the archaeologists involved in the project, Octavio Juarez, highlighted the importance of the exhibits, which reflect the Mayan cosmovision of nature and death. Cuba prepares to celebrate the 33rd edition of the International Book Fair of Havana. The Cuban Book Institute announced that tickets are already on sale for the event, which will be held from February 13th to 23rd at the San Carlos de la Cabaña Fortress. With the premise "Reading is Growing," this year the fair will have South Africa as its guests of honor and pay tribute to the writers Francisca Lopez de Vieira and Virgilio Lopez Lemus. And we have come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.